Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. This is Jay from ShopWorks, and I want to thank you for taking the time today to attend our webinar on better order management. The way our webinars work here at ShopWorks is that you can hear me, I cannot hear you. This webinar is recorded. We will post it on our YouTube channel later today. So if you want to review it, share it with an employee, have someone else watch it, you can certainly do that. If you just go to YouTube and search on ShopWorks, you'll find it there. And just so you know, we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. Because I can't hear you, you'll notice that there is a chat box. When you logged in to GoToWebinar, there's a little GoToWebinar window or application that pops up. If you want to ask a question throughout the webinar, just go ahead and type into that chat box. I'm not going to answer the question right at that moment. I'm going to wait till the end. I'm going to reserve some time at the end of the webinar to answer all of your questions, but go ahead and type them as you're thinking about them, and then we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. So again, the subject of our webinar today is better order management, and my name again is Jay, and I'm the owner here at ShopWorks. Let me tell you first a little bit about ShopWorks, the company. We've been in business for about 20 years, and we used to own an apparel and promotional products business, and that's how OnSite was created. Now, ShopWorks is the company name. The software is actually called OnSite. You'll hear a lot of people refer to our software as ShopWorks. ShopWorks is actually the company name. OnSite is the software. And it's not just generic software, meaning it has been designed specifically for our industry. And by our industry, we mean the apparel industry, screen printers and embroiderers, the promotional products industry, which is the distributor and the manufacturing side of it. That's PPD, promotional products distributors and manufacturers, the digital printing industry, awards and recognition. Essentially, just like it says here, anybody who puts logos on things, our software is going to work very well for you. Now, in fact, ShopWorks, the company, actually runs on OnSite software. The same software we sell, we run our company on it. So you can actually use it for lots of different stuff, but it was designed specifically for the embellished product industry. This year, we will surpass 1,000 installations. That means 1,000 companies since 1998. And so as of next year, we'll be officially 20 years in business. And the companies that purchase our software range in size, and by size, we mean their annual sales, from very small, in other words, kind of people working out of their homes, $250,000 a year in sales, to $25 million in annual sales or more. We have some 50, 60, 70 user systems where they have 50, 60, 70 employees that have seats for our software, which probably means they have 100 or more employees. And then, of course, we have many smaller customers, people 1, 2, 3 people shops. So OnSite can grow with your company. That's the point of all that, is that if you purchase our software when you're very small, it will stay with you as you grow, and hopefully will help you grow to be a much larger business. Okay, next thing I want to talk about today, before we get into the demonstration portion of our webinar, is why would you need a piece of software like OnSite? On the software that we sell. And I want to illustrate that by showing you the typical company in our industry and how they work. And the reason I know this is because, well, first of all, I used to own one of these businesses myself. And when I owned my business, I started it from scratch. So I started with 0 sales. And when I sold my business in 2002, I hesitate to say sold it because I just got out from underneath it, but we were doing about $1.6 million in sales. So we went from 0 to $1.6 million in sales. And so we went through very many different iterations of our company in size, from 0 myself only to 1 employee, 2 employees, up to at the end, I think we probably had close to 15 or 20 employees. And then also, as I've owned ShopWorks, the company, obviously with almost 1,000 installations, we've seen a lot of different scenarios of companies come to us and they say, hey, we really need your software. This is what we're currently doing. And it's a very similar story from everyone. And this is the story. So this is the picture I want to paint for you. And I think as you see this story, a lot of you are going to say, yes, that's me. That's exactly what we're like. And so this is the story. This is the scenario that most people come to us before they install, before they've implemented our software. And this is what I call the typical shop. So the typical shop is they use 3-part forms to take orders. So when someone walks into their shop to take an order, they use a 3-part form. They have a sales department. The sales department writes up that 3-part form. They hand it off to the art department. One part of the form, another part of the form goes to production, and typically a third part of the form goes to their purchasing department. The communication between departments is slow, and it's paper-driven because you're using 3-part forms. And here's a typical question. What happens if something changes on the order? Well, you know what happens. The salesperson has to go retrieve all those pieces of paper, change it, and redistribute the paper. Okay, so that's the sales side of it. What's the production side of it? Well, production schedules are typically maintained on magnet boards, spreadsheets, or sometimes even on paper. I've seen where people will have these forms that people have given to them, the salespeople have given to them. They're in stacks, or they're taped up on a wall on some sort of scheduling system on a wall, or in stacks on the floor. I've seen all different kinds of systems. But again, now we're talking about another system. The production manager has his system. The salespeople are writing up the orders manually. That's how production's done. Shipping information is entered manually. So once the order gets done, it has to go to shipping. Shipping information is entered manually into UPS, FedEx, or other shipping programs. So more data entry, another system to maintain because you're maintaining your FedEx system. And then we go to accounting. How's accounting done? Well, accounting's done in QuickBooks or another accounting package. Again, more data entry. That 3-part form is now having to be entered into QuickBooks or into your accounting package. I haven't even talked about the art department. What's the art department doing? Well, the art department is taking that piece of paper and they're maintaining their own schedule, if they're even doing scheduling at all. So the art department's maintaining their paperwork. And again, all paper-driven, paper done. Now, what is the end result of this? Why is this a bad thing? Well, the reality is if you're a very small shop and you're doing a very small business volume, it's not. 3-part forms and all this paper I'm talking about will work fine. The problem is when you get to a certain sales volume, and I found when I was running my business, that sales volume was about $250,000 in sales, but that's going to vary. It really depends more on the number of transactions you're processing. But I found that those paper systems started to break down pretty quickly as your sales grow. So here's the problems that you start happening as your sales grow. Number one, it's inefficient because you and your employees are having to enter data manually into multiple systems. And that means more work for you and your employees, more work doing paper instead of doing your jobs. So in the examples I just gave you, the salesperson writes up the 3-part form. That's one system. The production manager is maintaining his calendar, which he may, or if he's using magnets, he's having to fill out information. That's another system. I didn't even address purchasing. Your purchasing person might be maintaining something. Your accounting person is entering into QuickBooks. That's more data entry. So again, now you're entering it a third time. So lots of data entry, lots of paper. Another problem, making changes to orders is difficult and labor intensive. So here's a real world scenario. Your customer orders 100 shirts or 100 product from you, whatever it is. A week later, they come back and they've decided, wow, this is so successful. We're getting such a great demand for the product that we want to order 25 more. Well, that's a great situation for you guys, except that it's a pain in the butt to do the paperwork because now they've called you on the phone and we want to order 25 more product. Let's just say they're shirts. Well, now you have to get up, go retrieve all that paperwork you distributed. So what you told the production staff it was going to be 100. Well, now it's going to be 125. You told the purchasing person it was going to be 100. Now it's going to be 125. You've told the artist it was going to be 100. Now it's going to be 125. So you have to go disseminate that information to everyone, which typically is going to involve retrieving paperwork and editing the paperwork and then redistributing it to everyone. Very labor intensive. Because of all this, there's a higher chance for errors on orders because of this poor communication, lost paperwork, and even, sounds stupid, but simply bad handwriting. Because you're doing manual forms, sales guy Jay's handwriting might be way worse than sales guy Greg's. And yes, my handwriting is terrible. And when I owned my shop, I was notorious for, writing 56, and someone would read 50 because my sixes look like zeros. And so we would get additional product or get too less of product, depending on which way my mistake was. So handwriting can actually result in many mistakes, depending on who the salesperson is. Another problem is it's difficult, very difficult, for owners and managers to know what's going on with your business because these things are paper. So let's go back to our scenario where the sales guys are entering in these 3-part forms, your sales numbers into your orders into 3-part forms. How, as a sales manager, how, as a business owner, are you going to know what's going on in my shop right now? How much sales do I have in my shop right now? You have no predictive tools. The only thing that you have is in QuickBooks, which is the end of your cycle. In other words, the end of when everything's done and it's entered into QuickBooks, you might know 30 or 45 days later what your sales were, but you're going to know nothing in real time. You're going to know nothing of what's going on right now unless you go to magnet boards, go to pieces of paper, and re-enter, rekey that information into spreadsheets. So it takes a lot of additional work to get information on what's going on right now if you want that information. And in this day and age, knowing what's going on right now in your shop is very important. If you're waiting till 30 or 45 days down the road to find out, for example, how my August went, then you're pretty far behind. You should know during August how your August is going, so you can make mid-month adjustments if you need to. If you're in the middle of August and you know that your August isn't going so great and it's August 15th, well, guess what? You have the opportunity to maybe do an email blast to your customers with a special, with a coupon. Maybe you can do some other sort of marketing effort to pump up your August. If it's now October 11th, like it is today, and I'm finally running my QuickBooks numbers, and I'm saying, oh gosh, August turned out to be a really not a very good month. There's nothing you can do about August. August is a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. So there's nothing I can do about it. So real-time information is very important, and you can't get that when you're relying on paperwork systems. Another one is it's very hard and slow to get customer answers when they call in about an order. So again, another very real world situation for you is you are in a very order intensive business. So basically almost all day, the bulk of your employees' effort is to get orders out. And you're fielding a lot of questions from customers. What's going on with my order? I need to change an order. I need another order. I need this on an order. I need that on an order. A lot of order related questions you're fielding. When you're in a paper-driven shop, it's very difficult to answer customer questions and make customer changes to orders because, again, paper-driven. So when a customer calls, let's just say a customer has a very simple question about an order. What's the status of my order? What did I do on this order? What was the design that's used in this order? What's the status of that design? Any of those type questions, you're probably going to have to say, I'll tell you what, let me call you back. And it's probably going to take you 15 or 20 minutes. You're going to have to hang up the phone, get up from your desk, go talk to a couple people, track down some information, jot it down, and call that customer back. Well, now they're not there anymore. You got to remember to call them back later. Maybe you forget, bad customer service. Maybe you remember, but then they're not there. You leave a message and they call you back. Now you're not there. Now you're doing the phone tag thing. It's very inefficient. So a better way to handle this, well, I'll show you that in a minute. How about that? I'll save that one for you. We're going to do that here in a couple minutes, a better way. The better way is you want to be able to answer that customer's question real time, and that's what OnSite's going to do for you. So the bottom line for your business is when you're in this paper environment, and if you've been doing this for years, it's hard for you to see it because you're in the middle of the woods and there's trees all around you. But it's hard for you to see it right now if you're in that paper environment. But you have right now a higher cost to process an order. So every order, instead of it costing you $15 to process the order, and what I mean by $15 is $15 to process the paperwork of that order. So for someone to enter the order, someone to answer questions on the order, someone to run that order through your QuickBooks and do the purchasing on it. Let's just say it costs with OnSite, and I'm making up these numbers. I have no data to prove these numbers, but I'm making them up. Let's just say it costs $15 to process an OnSite. You're probably looking at a cost of $50 to process it with a paper system. Just the labor. We're talking about labor cost. So it's a higher cost to process your order. That makes it difficult to grow your business because you can't, your labor, the people that you're hiring are spending time pushing paper. They're not spending time talking to customers, growing your business like they should be. And you have frustrated employees. Your customers are frustrated because they can't get answers when they want them. They probably feel like your business is pretty inefficient. And you're probably frustrated because you can't grow your business. You're probably not taking vacations. And the bottom line is you're working harder to get orders out of your shop than someone who's more automated than you, automated with software that will help them do more work in less time. So that's the picture I wanted to paint. We've seen this literally almost 1,000 times. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times over 20 years, we've seen this. If we sit down our new customers who have not implemented our software and we sit them in an office and we talk to them, and we do this with our training classes, and we start telling them this story, they start laughing because they're like, how did you know? This is exactly what our shop's like, and you haven't even been to our shop. And the reason why is because we've seen it over 20 years. We've seen it hundreds of times. Everybody goes through the same iterations. So how do you get out of this? How do you get out of this paper world that you're living in? Well, that's what we're here for today. I'm going to show you our on-site system software. And this is the login screen for it. And what I'm going to do is I want to show you today the perspective from different employees. So I showed you what it was like in the paper world. And now what I want to show you what it's like in the integrated electronic world. So with integrated software. I'm going to tell you what I mean more by the word integrated. That's a fancy word. People throw it around in the software world a lot. But I'm going to show you that here in a second. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as an administrator. So I'm going to log in as the owner of the company, Jay Markinson. And when I log in as the owner of the company, well, if you're not familiar with our software, the first thing that you'll notice is across the top, you see these icons. These icons represent the different departments within your company. And you can see sales, purchasing, receiving, production, shipping, invoicing. And if you'll notice, those 5 really are all of order entry. So you enter an order, you purchase an order, you receive the goods for the order, you produce the order, you ship the order, and then you invoice the order. And then it goes to accounting. And then you have all the other components of your business: inventory, analysis, utilities, marketing, customers, products, designs, and vendors. Now, we're not going to cover every single department that OnSite handles, but what I want you to pick from this, what I want you to understand about our software at a very top level, is that OnSite typically replaces for most people 3, 4, sometimes even 5 or 6 different pieces of software or systems. So for example, you can see in here, and we're not going to cover this in this really, but we have a marketing component. So we have a whole CRM module to our system. We have designs management. We have vendors. We have a full-blown accounting system that's integrated. It's part of our software. It's not a separate software package. It's part of the on-site system. We have invoicing, which means you're not entering data into QuickBooks. You're taking an order, you're pushing a button, and it's converting that sales order into an invoice. You made a mistake on the invoice? No problem. You uninvoice it, make your edit, re-invoice. And it's all works within the same software and talking to the general ledger within the same software. You're not exporting to QuickBooks. Oh, I made a mistake. Now I got to delete the transaction out of QuickBooks, refix it in my software, then re-export it out of my software so that it re-imports it into QuickBooks, which is a very cumbersome process. That's not what we're talking about. It's all in one software package, and it is full general ledger accounting. So I just want you to kind of at the beginning here get your brain around the concept that this is a fully integrated software package with almost all the aspects that you'll need to run your business. So with that in mind, the next thing I'd like to tell you is these are all also, now that might scare you because you might say, well, gosh, Jay, that's great, but when I don't want all my employees to have access to all this information. And that's fine. We understand that too. So when you log in, that's why we have a login. When you log in, you have access controls over which employees have access to which departments. Remember, I'm logged in as the owner. And as the owner, I have access to everything, which is exactly how you're going to want it in the real world. So I'm going to take you through other employees, and you'll see as we go through the other employees how these become restricted. But right now, I'm logged in as Jay Markinson, the owner of the business. And let's kind of, and Jay, as the owner of the business, I'm also the sales manager. I kind of oversee the whole business. So let's just see in the sales and the orders department, because that is what we're talking about in this webinar, better order management. Let's really see what I can see as an owner, as a sales manager, what I can see in the system. So I'm in sales on orders, and I want to get a big picture view of what's going on with my business. So I'm going to go over to orders in progress, and I'm going to click on view all. And when I do that, I can see immediately that I have 94 orders in progress, and I can see who the order's for. I can see the order ID number, the customer it's for, the design that's linked to that order, and then you can have multiple designs. I can also see the requested ship date and the order type. The order type tells me what kind of embellishment we're doing on that order. And these are completely customizable, meaning you can make these whatever you want. So I have screen print, embroidery, promotional products, but again, you can make these customized for your business. So these can be whatever you want. If I click on this status primary, I get a little, I kind of call it like a stoplight view, but I get a very quick view of what's going on with each order. I can see if it's on a hold or not, if there's an order, we're waiting on an order approval, if the design's been done, if the order's art approval's been done, if the purchasing's been done, the subcontract purchasing, if that's even appropriate, if it's been received or not, produced, shipped, invoiced, and paid. And so very quickly, you can see I can get an overview of what's going on with each order. Something to keep in mind, this is all real-time information. I don't have to wait for an end-of-the-day posting. I don't have to wait for data to be exported from QuickBooks and imported. This is real-time. Let's say somebody in my accounting department went to this order right here and received payment, because you can see there's no payment been received on it. As I'm looking at the screen would flash, and that would change from no to partial or no to yes. So my payment, it would update real time as I'm using the system. And that's very important because it's a fast-moving business, it's a fast-moving industry, and so it's important that you have real-time information. Now this is just a very top-level view, and I can filter this view, I can sort this view. So say, for example, if I wanted to sort by company name, I can now see it by company name. I can sort by order type. So if I just want to see it by order type. Now this is still just too much information for me. I'm going to go back to the main menu, and you can see here I've created some stored finds. I just want to see my screen print orders right now. And so that's going to bring up my screen print orders, and I have 12 of them in-house right now. And let's see how many embroidery orders I have. I'm going to go to my embroidery orders, and I can see I have 18 of those. So you can see it's very easy to slice and dice the information. And I'm just giving you some very simple examples. You can get very complex with the way that you do these searches. You can store your searches, and I can make them very easily retrievable. So I'm showing you simple examples. You can get very complex with these. Now, the beauty of our system, too, is let's say I see something on the screen that kind of bothers me, or I have more some more questions about it. I can just simply click on that order for more information. So I see on here this Burger Kingston order, and I'm just going to click on it. And when I do that, I'm now in the order itself. Notice my top level, I'm still on sales orders, but I've now drilled down into the order. If I ever want to go back, I just click on done, and it brings me back to where I was. This is kind of like a spreadsheet view. And if I click on it, that brings in me to my record details. So now I'm on the order itself, and within the order, I now have all this different information, customer information. I can see the date it's been placed and the requested ship date. I realize these are old dates just because this is a demo system. We have old data in here, but pretend like it's 2015. Obviously, we hope it wouldn't take 2.5 years to deliver orders. You can see our system supports multiple contacts for each customer. So if we have multiple people that buy from us at Burger Kingston, we can store all their contact information in there. We have full featured design management within our system. So you can see here, this is an embroidery order, and it's a left chest of 15,000 stitches. We're specifying exactly how it's being produced, the thread breaks and the thread colors, and we can even store a thumbnail image. Let me show you. If I go back out here to the browse mode and I click on thumbnails, you can see any orders that have thumbnails will show in this view. So let's just say I wanted to see more details on this order, and I go to design, and it has multiple designs on this order. So I can go from the company logo to travel mugs, and on the travel mugs I can see each of the thumbnails that's associated with it. I click on the line items to see the line item details for that order. And a couple things you'll notice here is, first of all, that we have some very industry specific features. Number one is a size matrix. So unlike programs like QuickBooks or other software programs, you do not have to enter each size as a separate line item. You can enter a size matrix. So you can see for this particular item, we've only entered size large, but you can have other sizes as well. Another thing that you'll notice is that you don't just have a part number and a description. You have a color range and a color, and that's because of the way that our industry handles part numbers. One of the nice features that we offer all of our customers that have a technical support contract is we have on our website, you can download all of the vendor price lists from our website into your on-site system. So say, for example, you're using Sanmar or Alpha or Broder or any of these wholesalers. On a periodic basis, you can download or update vendor pricing from our website into your on-site system. So you do not have to manually enter those products and maintain them in our system. You can do that from our website. We also have the shipping tab. This is where you can specify multiple shipping addresses, and you can do split shipments. So for example, let's say on this particular order, I wanted to ship of these 50 hats. I wanted to ship part of them to one address and part to another address. Our system can handle that. If you go to your payments tab, this is where the integration to the accounting is so important, because I can actually receive payments right from the screen if I have proper access rights. Or if somebody in my accounting department had received a check, let's say we had a deposit on this particular order, I would see the deposit details right in the screen. We have attachments, which is other documents or files that we want to attach to this order. We can see customer proofs. We have another webinar exactly on proofs and how those work in our system. That's going to be in a couple weeks. I'll tell you about that later. And then we have print, where we can print forms. You're still going to have the need for some paper in your office. We have some customers who don't use any paper. Most of our customers still do use some paper. So if you wanted to print out forms, this is where you would do it from. So these order screens, these are the same screens that we use for order entry, are accessible from someone else who's using the system and has access. And so you can see here, if someone called me and had questions, let's say, for example, I'm doing something in the system. Let's say I'm working in the accounting department and I'm cutting some checks or something, and suddenly my phone rings and it's one of my customers and he has a question. All I do is I go over to sales and let's see, who's the customer? Okay, I can search on all this different criteria, the guy's name, the order type, but I happen to know the customer name. It's Burger King. So I type in the customer's name. Okay, well, we're working on 4 orders for Burger Kingston. Let's say Burger Kingston's the one who called. We're working on 3 orders for you. I'm going to omit Burger King because it's Burger Kingston is who's calling me. We're working on 3 orders for you, and he tells me, well, it's the embroidery order. Okay, I drill into the order. Sure, what questions can I answer for you? Well, I'd like to, edit some of the sizes that I sent over to you. Okay, let me check the status of the order. Okay, the purchasing's been done on this order, so we've already ordered the product, and we've received some of the product. What are the changes you'd like to make? Oh, you want to add some quantities? No problem. So I'd go in here, and I would simply add the quantities that he wants. So for instance, let's say I wanted to put in 12 and I'd add it. Now there's 36. Now, if I check my status is partially purchased because we had issued some purchase orders. The order was fully purchased. But now, again, this is all done real time. This is important to understand. This is all done real time. Now the purchasing on this order, this is now being kicked back to my purchasing department that now they have to do some ordering on this. So very powerful tools. Everything is real time, very quick to get information. That's what we're seeing from a sales manager perspective. We're going to circle back to the owner view here in a little while. Let's go now to what a salesperson can see in the system. So I'm going to log out as myself and pretend like I'm on another computer, and I'm Eddie, or oh no, I'm Eddie. Eddie is getting into the office today, and he logs into the system. He's at a different desk, different computer. And when Eddie logs into the system, notice his screen looks a little bit different. Now, you would probably not have Eddie have access to all these different departments. Those would be grayed out. But when Eddie goes to orders in progress, notice he only sees 15 orders in progress. He can't see all the orders in progress. The reason why is because I, as a sales manager, have turned off his access to see other people's orders. He can only see his orders in the system. Now, you don't have to set your system up that way, but I'm just telling you as an option, you can set it up so that salespeople can only see their orders. So think how powerful that is if you have salespeople, if you have a sales force where you only want the salespeople to see orders that they are working on, you can restrict that for them so that that's all that they can do. They can only enter orders and they can only see their orders. They won't even be able to see what the other people are working on if you want them to. So now once Eddie's in the order, in here, he can search on his own orders. He can go into the order. Now we even have a further level of controls where I can actually control each of these individual pages. So for example, this analysis page or this payments page, if I wanted to restrict this payments page and make it read only, or if I wanted to make it so he couldn't view it at all, you have that amount of control in the system. Okay, let's log out as Eddie, the salesperson. And again, remember, the salesperson is not going to have access to all these different departments. You're going to control over what they have access to. Let's log out as Eddie. Now let's log in as my purchasing manager. My purchasing manager is Mike, and Mike's going to log into the system. And what does Mike see? Well, first of all, notice that Mike is restricted from these other areas. If Mike tries to go over to accounting, he can't get there. If Mike tries to go over to marketing, he can't get there. Mike doesn't need access to those areas of the company because he has nothing to do with that. Mike simply does purchasing. Now, I do have Mike has access to orders too because sometimes he needs to look at the details of an order. But when Mike goes to an order, I want to show you something. Notice it's read only. So Mike can't really do anything to an order. He can just look at them. And certain pages, for instance, analysis, read only, or no access rather. He can't see anything. So certain pages I can restrict all the information from him. He can't even look at it. So you have a lot of control over what the person can see and what they can do in the system. So all the orders are just going to be read only for Mike. As far as sales orders. Now when he goes over to purchasing, okay, this is where Mike really does his job all day. And purchasing in our system can be done by order, meaning you can purchase each order individually, or you can do it by line item, meaning you can gang items from orders that are similar and gang them together. For example, if I have white t-shirts from 10 different orders, I might want to buy those in bulk to get the cheapest discount I can. So I would do that by line item. But if I go in here by order, and both these areas work similarly, if I click on all not purchased, notice this is like a queue, if you will, a work queue. This is showing me every single order in the system that needs to be purchased. If I go by line item, all to purchase, this is showing me every single item in the system that needs to be purchased. So no more of your purchasing agent having to sift through pieces of paper, add up all the different items from the paper, hoping they order properly. No more having to compile this information into spreadsheets and then doing your purchasing based on that. The system is keeping track of what's been purchased and what has not been purchased based off of order information. Once you order it, it takes it out of the queue, and then it's moved on to the receiving department. So again, eliminating paperwork, automating it through the computer system, and a lot better information and a lot better trackability through your system. Okay, let's now see what my artist sees. So now I'm going to log out, and I'm skipping over the receiving person, but you have a receiving queue. You also have a shipping queue. I'm not going to show you that either, but I am going to show you what the artist sees. So I'm going to log in as Pat the artist. So Pat the artist logs in, and notice Pat's very restricted too. He can see sales, he can see production, he can see designs. But notice down here there's a toolbar, and on that toolbar we have little different tools. And one of the tools that Pat uses a lot is he uses his calendar. Because artists and production managers, they like to use calendars a lot, and these are very useful tools for production people. So this is Pat's design calendar. Pretend like we're in June of 2017. Now he doesn't have a lot on there because I don't have a lot of data in the system, but you can see here we have a monthly view. I can filter it by artist. If I have multiple artists, I can filter by the type of design that we're doing. So in other words, if it's for screen printing, if it's for embroidery, if it's for banners, whatever different types of designs you do are available here, customizable. If I want to see more details, I can look on a weekly view. We call this drilling down, and I can see the estimate or the time. I can see if it's partially done or not done. And if I want to drill down even further, and I can click down, drill down even further. And so I can see here, for example, on this particular order, I'm on an order 1163. There's 2 designs that need to be done. One has already been completed, and one is yet to be completed by Pat Conrad. That's me. And so when I'm done with that job, I can go to it. I can mark it as being done, or I can put it in whatever different stage I want. So for example, let's say I'm waiting for the film approval. That means it's still partially done, but I'm waiting on approval. And we also have logging tools. For example, I can go to my art logs and I can log time on this job. So let's say I was doing the initial design and I spent 3 hours, and I can put a note on here, spent time with the customer and also working on the design in Photoshop. So you can get as detailed with this or as not detailed as you like. And then I add the log, and now it's attached 3 hours to this particular job and to that particular design. Again, I'm going through this stuff kind of fast here. If the production manager needed to see more details on the design, for example, if I go here to design, I can see what the actual design looks like. Or if I wanted to change some of the colors that were used on the design, if I wanted to change any of the other production specifics, I could. He could change the thumbnails. He can switch between the 2 different designs. There's 2 different designs that are used in this order. He could change between those different designs and work on one or work on the other. There's a lot of different functionality that you have within the system. Again, I'm not going to have time to show you all of that functionality in this particular webinar, but just keep in mind that functionality is there. It's in the system. The other thing I'm not going to have time to show you, but I want you to know, is we have a touchscreen. We have a touchscreen version of the system that a lot of people use. Their artists use it, and their production staff use it. And it has a production component to it, again, for artists and for production staff, but it also has a shipping and a receiving component. So that's where some people that are, some people who are trying to go completely paperless are doing so by using this touchscreen in their production areas. Okay, let's go back to OnSite. All right, let's log out now as Pat, and now let's log in as Greg. Now, who's Greg? Greg is our production manager. Now, as our production manager, Greg's settings are similar to Pat's, that he can see stuff in sales, in production, in designs, but he can't really get to accounting and some of these other areas. And Greg is going to work a lot with the calendar too. Now, Greg is more interested in the production calendar, not so much in the design calendar. So when we go to Greg's production calendar, notice we can see it by machine, and you would set up your different machines that you run in your shop. We also have it by event. Event is like the your production departments is a way to think of it. So I'm showing currently the calendar for every production department, but you can filter it by a specific department. For example, if I wanted to see my screen printing department, there's my jobs for my screen printing department. If I click on all, it shows me everything. Again, just like with the art schedule, I can drill down so I can look at a weekly view. And notice once I do that, it's showing me a piece count and a time count or an hour count for each of these days. So I can see I have 40 minutes of production on that day, almost 5 hours on that day, an hour and a half on that day, etc. Drill down again, I'm getting a daily view. If I want to see very specifics, I click on the job, and it takes me to the specifics for that individual job. 168 imprints, the date it's scheduled, setup and estimated setup time, estimated run time based on the machine that we have it scheduled on. And again, that's part of your machine setup, and you would populate that in your system. So all the production tools are there as far as scheduling goes. And same thing, if I went to my design, my production manager would be able to update. Okay, we used a hard squeegee on this one with a 30-degree angle and a 220 mesh. On the second screen, we use a 156 mesh, medium. You know, you can put as many production details in here. You may not want to store this much detail, but you can if you want to. And again, you could update the design status, you can update the production status, you can update logs. There's a lot of information, a lot of detail that I'm not able to go through in this webinar that is in the system. So just want you to remember that's in there. If you'd like a personalized demo, we can certainly set that up for you and go over any of those details that you're interested in. The purpose of this webinar is to kind of give you an overview of all this order management stuff. We're still in the realm of order management. The last thing I want to leave you with today is I want to log back in as the owner, Jay. So what you've seen is that all these different employees, okay, we had a sales manager, we had a salesperson, then we had purchasing, an artist, and a production person. They all logged in. They all could see information that was only pertinent to them. They could all only change information that was pertinent to them. All this information is real time, it's all connected, and it all affects each other. So everybody's working on the same information. That means that you're not having to rekey in information multiple times. It means that everybody's getting the information as quickly as possible. And it means you're able to answer customers' questions as quickly as possible. So those are all positives for your business. All of those things are positives for your business. Now I want to show you one last thing with regards to the demo here, and that is from a business owner's perspective, how quickly you can get at information. So I want to log back in as the business owner. And I want to show you something. Let's say we have an analysis section, and let's say, and this is stuff you cannot get in the paper world. So in the paper world, let's say I want to know how many screens I sold in 2016. You can't do that in the paper world without pulling pieces of paper or going into your QuickBooks, and if you even enter that information into QuickBooks. It's going to take a lot of work. In our system, what you do is you go into analysis. I'd go into line item analysis. I'm going to do a search. The part number for our screens is screen. Date invoice is 1/1/16, 12/31/16. So I'm doing a range here. And there's all of our screen charges we sold in 2016. So I sold 22 of them. Obviously, in the real world, you'd hope that'd be a bigger number. And it totaled $945. If I go to sales analysis, let's see how much sales I did in 2016. So I'm going to say 1/1/16, 12/31/16. Same date range. Okay, and I'm going to sort it by order type. Okay, now it's giving me details with sub-summaries under it. But I'm going to go to Analysis Summary tab, and it's just going to tell me by order type. So I can see in 2016 we did $35,000 invoiced, and by order type: custom screen print, custom embroidery, screen print and embroidery combo, promotional products, etc. Now this might not be jaw-dropping information for you. What it is very useful for is when you're in the middle of a month, or you're 2/3 of the way through the month, and you want to say, okay, what's my sales this month? It's very easy to bring up these reports as a manager or as a sales manager or business owner and say, okay, how are we doing this month, and make mid-month adjustments. Because the system is so good at giving you real-time information, it makes it very easy and very quick and nimble to adjust on the fly. There's a lot of other reporting in here: activity, daily management reports, purchase order line items. There's tons of other information in here. Again, we're not able to cover all this in a kind of a webinar on better order management, but just so you know, there's a lot more analysis in here that I'm not even touching on in this webinar. Okay, that kind of ends it for our webinar on better order management. I hope you see the value in having a fully integrated piece of software, over living in the paper-driven world. A couple things I'd like to bring to your attention before we wrap it up here. On the 26th of this month, we are offering a webinar on easier customer art approvals. I will send out a bulk email to you if you would like to register for that webinar. Also, on November 14th, we're doing a webinar specifically on the production control portion of our system. So on how the whole production part of our system works, we're doing a webinar on that. That's on November 14th. So these are already scheduled webinars. We will send out a notification to everybody where you can register for those. I appreciate your time today. If you have any, if you would like a personalized demonstration, would like to see more on our software, you can do that by going to our website, and we can set up a demo for you. You can also talk to one of our customers or visit their shop if we have one in your area, which we probably do. So if you'd like to see our software in action at somebody's shop, we can arrange that for you. And I guess the floor is now open for questions. I see a couple questions are here, so let me see what we got. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them now. So I'm going to start answering the ones that we have that have come in. Again, if you have any other ones, go ahead and ask them. The first question is from Rob, and it says, what are the highlighted orders with the little pages icon? Okay, let's go over to the system. If we go into sales, and we're looking at view all orders, highlighted orders with a little pages icon. Rob, I'm not sure what you're referring to there. So I'm going to wait for you to give me a little bit more detail on that, on what screen you're referring to. 10-170. I think you're referring to 1070. Oh, you're referring to this. Okay. This icon means there's a back order related to it. So we have a back orders feature in OnSite where when you have an order and there's a back order, back orders can be used for a lot of different reasons. Either there's a back order on the blank goods, or there can be other reasons for back orders as well. This means that the blue means that the order has a back order. The yellow color means the order is a back order of another order. And if you click on that button, it will bring the orders and its back orders together. So that means that 1070 and 1071 happen to be an order and its back order together. So that's That's the what those icons refer to. The next question is from Brittany, and it says, does each department get notifications of changes to orders, and how are these notifications sent or received by the departments? There's not notifications sent to each order, to each department rather. The way they would know the notifications is through our queuing. So, for example, you saw in that one order, the purchasing had been done, and then I added some product to the order, and then the purchasing status went from being purchased to being partially purchased. That would automatically pop up in the purchasing queue. So, to answer your question, it would be solved procedurally because the person then who's doing the receiving would then see it in their purchasing queue, and then they would procedurally know that they need to purchase that order for that order. Now, you might say, well, gosh, that's really is depending on the person to do their job. Yes, that's correct. Procedurally, you're going to have to implement some procedures for people to, people have to check their queue. In other words, the purchasing person has to, whatever your procedure is, on a daily basis, they need to know to go in here and look at their queue and sort by in-hands date. And then the ones that are the soonest in-hands date, they need to purchase those first, or whatever your procedure is, they're going to need to do that. On top of that, we do have what's called an internal messaging system. So for example, let me show you that. Let's say on this particular order, I had made a change and I want to send somebody a message on that. Because I know that, let's just say Omar is the person who does the purchasing on this. Oops. So let's go over to this order. That's interesting. Yeah, there's some sort of glitch in here right now, so I'll just do it manually. So the order is 1071. It should just pop up as 1071 in here. So I would say to Omar, and the order number would come up automatically. And I'd say, regarding this order, please make sure this is purchased today. Now Mike was our purchasing guy, so I'm going to pick, and there's Mike Rollins. He's our purchasing guy. Save it. So it's going to go to Mike. Mike, please purchase this today. It's important. Send this message. Okay, so this is like email, but it's not email. It's not sent out over the internet. It's only internal. That's why it's called internal messaging. It's only internal to the on-site system. So see down here, I can see that I have a new message. That's what Mike would see. Mike would see he has a new message. And he would click on he would go to his focal point and see, oh, okay, I got a message from Jay. I need to order that material today on that order. So there is an internal messaging system. And so you would implement, if the queuing isn't enough for you, then you would also implement a procedure whereby for really mission critical stuff, you're going to also send a message to the person. And that message is attached to the order. So if that person's like, oh gosh, I never got that message, I'm going to blame you for it. Well, they can't do that because if I go in here to messages, I can see on 10/11 at 1:55, Jay sent a message to Mike. So it's attached to the order. It's permanently stored in the system, and you have a history of it. Even if Mike deletes his side of it, let's say Mike said, well, I'm just going to delete that message, pretend I didn't get it. It's not going to delete the fact that Jay sent it to him. So you are going to have a history of that in the system. And that's what I would recommend how you implement it. The next question is also by Brittany. It's a good one. Are artwork times and notes adjustable? Can artists go back and change their logs? You would set their access rights so they cannot. So now it's going to depend on how, you might have a manager whereby a manager can. Now we have time cards in our system, so you run into this with time cards all the time, right? So an employee comes in, they clock in. Oh gosh, I forgot to clock in. So then you're going to have a manager, and the manager's job is to fix those things. So the manager's access is going to be, they're going to be able to edit time card edits. The base employee is not going to be able to make time card edits. So if they make a mistake, they have to tell the manager, and the manager fixes it. You're going to do the same thing with art logs. The basic artist is not going to be able to make art log edits, but the art manager is. So if the artist makes a mistake, I meant to put 30 minutes on this job and I forgot to do it, or I put 30 minutes on this job and I really meant 45 minutes. Can you fix that for me? Then the art manager is going to have to make that change, and you'll do that through access rights. Next question is from Chris, And can you attach a Corel file to the orders? Yes, Chris, you can. In fact, you can attach any kind of order, any kind of file rather, to an order. Now, when you put these attachments, so let's just say I go in here to an order and I say add attachment. It's just going to go to my file system. So on my computer, and I can attach anything. So I'm just going to attach a PDF file. When I do that, what it's really doing, it's taking that file and it's uploading it to my server. Okay, it's not really storing it. It's storing it on the server where the database is. Now you are going to want to be a little bit careful here. You're not going to want to store huge files. You're going to want to be a little bit careful. The way that and the reason why is because you're just going to clog up your server. What most of our customers do is they have one server or one computer. It doesn't have to be a server. One computer with a huge hard drive they store art on. Then they have their server that's used for our system, dedicated only for our system. Then what they'll do is they won't bother doing these attachments. I'm going to tell you why you don't need to do it here in a second. You can do this if you want, but I'm going to tell you why you don't need it. The reason why you don't need it is because your art department is going to be trained. When your art department gets the design, notice our system assigns a design number, 1548 and 1536. This is a master design number. No other design is ever going to have it. Our system assigns it. It cannot be edited. And so it's like a Dewey Decimal System. There'll only ever be one 1536. There'll only ever be one 1548. So what your art staff is going to do is on the computer where they store their art files, let's say they create a Corel file, let's say they create a Photoshop file, 4 Adobe Illustrator files, and 5 PDF files. They're going to start them all off as 1536. 1536 dash, I don't really care what you put after that. They can call them whatever they want, but they should start them off with the title of the file should be 1536. That way, every file is automatically keyed to 1536. So if you go to that computer and you say, okay, show me all the assets, show me all the files that go with design 1536, they would simply go to that computer, type in 1536, and boom, it brings everything up. So you don't really need to attach your files to the orders in the system. And in fact, we recommend you don't do that specifically with art files. What we would recommend you would use as attachments for is, let's say your customer sent you something like a signed piece of document and you wanted to store that document in here. Just as proof that they signed something. That might be an example of it. Or they gave you an example of something that you wanted to have as proof that, hey, you gave us an example of this and we want to keep that on file. That might be an example of where you'd want to keep, why you'd want to keep attachments. The designs we really don't recommend keeping as attachments just because it does have the potential to clog up your server, and there is a better way to do it. It doesn't prevent you from doing it this way, but we just don't recommend doing it that way. Okay, let's see. The next question is from Benoit. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I didn't, I apologize. Do you have a profit analysis per order? We do. If you go in here to sales, here, let's look at this particular order. If you go to analysis, let me show a better order. It has more data in it. Okay, here's a better one. If we go to this analysis tab, this is our profit analysis. And each order type, notice an order has an order type, will as a default let you include or exclude certain costs in it in the analysis. So notice here, as a default, here if I go to default, as a default, this particular order type doesn't include any costs. It's just doing pure revenue because it's subcontract embroidery. But I'm gonna say I want to include here. Let's just turn on everything. So I'm gonna turn on everything. So I want to include all revenue and all expenses. So I can see here, well, this order's a loser. We're only have $180 in revenue, and we have almost $900 in expenses. So that's a negative gross profit, a negative profit, and a negative profit ratio. So that's not a good scenario. And we have two different columns you can use. You can use a gross profit and a net profit. So you can just say, okay, well, I want gross profit to only include that number. and I went, or let's reverse, you'd reverse this. Gross profit only include that number, and net profit include everything. And so you can define these formulas to be kind of whatever you want. And so this is your job costing. And you can do this on a per order basis. And then there's a section of the program over in analysis where when I'm doing my sales analysis, like let's see what comes up for this month. There might not be that much information in here. Nope. Here, I'll just click on view all. I better not do that. Let's look at let's look at 2016 again. When I go to job costing, this is the same information presented in multiple record format. So I can look at it over a single order, or I can look at it over multiple orders. So this is it presented over multiple orders. So for example, let's say I was looking at the sales for last month, and I could do a gross profit and net profit analysis over, let's just pretend like this was a month, over a month. And I could see which jobs were losers and which jobs were winners, and I could break it down by customer, I could break it down by order type, etc. So yes, you do have profit analysis per order. If I want more details, again, like let's say I see some of these losers in here, like this one's a loser, let me go look at it. I click on it, it brings me to the order right to the analysis page. And I can see there's my gross profit analysis and there's my net profit analysis. So I actually lost money on that order, net profit. Okay, that concludes the questions that we had from this webinar. I appreciate your guys' time today. I encourage you to attend our other webinars. Again, you will receive an email announcing those shortly. If you need anything else, if you'd like a personalized demo where you can ask personalized questions regarding your exact business, just contact us from our website or send me an email directly. And just thanks again for your time today. I really appreciate it. That concludes our webinar.